with what you're saying. It's just, you know, I mean, that quote, you could use that quote today.
There's more distractions now than ever,
Kate
and those
Kate and
distractions
Jeff, what is it?
are funded from the...
John and Kate +8.
There's more distractions, and those distractions are funded from Madison Avenue on down. They're sanctioned by the system. And why? To keep the American people compliant and in the dark for the heist and the thievery and eventual probable extermination when the time comes. I hate to get to that point. You talked about eugenics.
Right.
But that's exactly...
It's now actually genetics. They actually changed the name. Well, all the eugenicists went from eugenics to genetics after World War II because Hitler made eugenics very unpopular worldwide. So they had to cloak it again, you know, because that's what they're good at doing. So we'll go, okay, we'll all kind of like mosey on over to the genetics laboratories, and we'll just infiltrate there. And that's where we'll make our new house, you know. But here's the thing, you know. The Lord said, He said, the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money itself, but He said the love of money is the root of all evil. That's a pretty powerful statement. And how many times have we heard, follow the money, and you'll find out where the corruption is at, you know? So here we're revealing tonight what the whole plan is with the scheme, and this is only part of it, folks. There's so much more, actually. You know, we can really get into the technicalities of how this works, but a lot of people probably wouldn't understand it right now. But it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. What they have done is they've set up this big scheme to rob us of all of our wealth and our productivity, and then the productivity and the wealth of our children. So in other words, they're going to be riding this wave of world domination. They already rule the world through the banks. They're going to be riding this for generations to come. Generation after generation after generation. You know, our founding fathers made a valiant effort at trying to break us free from this. You know, they fought for everything they were worth. They thought they had made it, but lo and behold, but you know what? We've learned. We know now from history. See, I was talking to someone the other day, and it just came out of my mouth. I said, you know, if you read history, you can see the future.
It repeats.
If you read history and study it, you can see the future. The future is not complicated. You know, I'm not a magician or anything by any means, God forbid. But what I am is I'm an individual who studies the history. So now I can see what's going to happen. That's why our founding fathers, we'd read these quotes and we're going, God, they were geniuses. You know, I mean,
they were
voracious
historians.
They were historians. Exactly.
They were moral, godly men too.
And they read the Word.
And they understood it.
They read the Word of God, so they knew all the pitfalls and the traps and the deceit. And they read history and studied history. You know, the Greeks, the Romans.
Yes.
They read all, and they understood exactly what was going to happen in the future. That's why they gave us the Constitution, the way they did it with the Bill of Rights. It's amazing. And here we are. Here we are now. Here we are. 2009, and we have a communist as a president of this country. Who would have ever thought that we would actually be sitting here and we thought we were free men, and here we have a communist as a president of our country. We don't even know if he's a natural born citizen or an illegal alien.
Now, speaking of communists, you got that citizens rule book over there.
Yes, I do.
Float to the very front. And just before reading it, actually, let me see it real quick, and I'll show you what I'm talking about.
I like to refer to Barack actually as a Nazi, and I'll tell you why.
You mind if I read this real quick?
Because he's a National Socialist.
Yes, he is.
Embraced nationals. I hate the term communist because it's so polarizing. Really what we've embraced is what Hitler pushed, National Socialism,
right.
Which is corporations and banks that have gotten control of the government. And as a result of getting hold of the government, we have embraced National Socialism, which Barack Obama is a front man for,
right.
Just like George Bush was a front man for it.
Absolutely.
So nothing changed.
No.
Now,
Sorry.
that's okay. For the people out there that are watching and listening, I'm going to go through a couple things on here, and I want you to tell me whether or not, in your mind, if this is happening in this country right now. Abolishing of private property, heavy progressive income tax, abolishing of all rights of inheritance, confiscation of private property of all immigrants and rebels, a central bank, government control of communications and transportation, government ownership of factories and agriculture, government control of labor, corporate farms, regional planning, and government control of education. Now, as I'm going through that, is that what is exactly happening in this country? If you say yes, guess what that is? That's a summary of the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah. The 10 planks.
Exactly.
We've embraced it.
Manifesto. You know, I wanted to add something here about what you were just saying, Russell, also. You know, our country was, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, our founding fathers thought that this was gonna give us protection. You know, and God bless them, they really did. But we can see now that we need to add some more things in there. Some more amendments. We need to get rid of some amendments, and we need to add some amendments, because we have a few, like the liberals like to use loopholes, you know.
Like the
and
general welfare clause.
right, general welfare. You know, well, they'll take any word and distort it, any sentence. Look at the First Amendment. You know, the myth of separation of church and state. No such words even exist in the First Amendment. You know, and our founding fathers wanted us. In fact, the Holy Bible was the #1 school book in the school system. It was used in the school system as the #1. There we go. Yeah, actually, Marshall DeRosa wrote a great book called Redeeming American Democracy, and he really gets into the comparisons and dissects the Constitution, especially in relation to the United Nations Charters and the Confederate Constitution. Which actually, the Confederate Constitution, that's what they did. They went in and they revamped the Constitution to make sure that these things couldn't happen again. People's liberties couldn't be jeopardized. But you know, the whole war. You know, Jackson was an awesome guy. He was awesome because he had to have armed guards with him all the time because they tried to kill him more than once.
Right.
You know, but his whole, you know, he ran for office based on his whole theme was, I'm going to end the central bank and give America back their bank, their money. Now think about this. Who's going to loan themselves? Who's going to give themselves a loan with interest? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You know, that would be like us going home. It would be like me going home and saying to my wife, "Okay, I'm going to give you $1,000. Give it back to me and charge me 6% interest on it." How stupid is that? But that's what they think, that's what they're trying to get us to accept. They're trying to get us to accept this absolutely idiotic a plan here of stealing all of our wealth. Now, here's the other thing, you know, all these guys. I remember when Bill Clinton said this, and back when he was president, he goes, "Oh, we have a surplus." Remember the big surplus? Bill Clinton came out and said, "We actually have a surplus, and we're doing so great." How can there be a surplus when everything in circulation is a debt? How can there be a surplus? In other words, how do you pay off a debt with a debt? You can't. And this ties into what you read about the birth certificates and so on, all the certificates. Mm-hmm. Because you can't pay off a debt with a debt. Because you have to have interest. There's interest on the debt. So where does the interest come from? From real value. Where's the real value? You know where it comes from? Our blood, sweat, and tears. That's where it comes from. So actually, I'm going to tell you this right now. We talked earlier about people think they only work for the government 6 months out of the year. That's a big lie, folks. Guess what? You work your whole life. You slave your whole life away for the international bankers. They own everything that we have. Every bit of production. All we're allowed to do is go out and buy some meat, food, and eat it. You know, sometimes not even very good food or meat because we can't afford the real good stuff. Can you imagine if we were on a gold standard right now? Imagine our parents had worked their whole lives, you know, for 20, 30 years, and they had been paid in gold and silver coin their whole life. Do you know something?
Prosperity would
Every
be
single one of our
unmatched.
parents would be rich. Every single one of them would be well-to-do. They'd be able to afford health care. They'd be able to afford retirement or whatever they wanted to do. They could travel around or whatever. They would have more than enough money. If we worked our whole lives, if I think about it, you know, if I worked, my goodness, I started working when I was 12 years old. If I'd been paid in gold and silver coins since that time, I could have retired when I was 30. I was a hard worker. I worked hard. I made a lot of money in those days. But of course, you know, you spend your whole life trying to play catch up. And what are you trying to catch up to? You're trying to catch up to this big scam that's going on here. It's called inflation. Inflation, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about interest and inflation. Now let's talk about interest. First off, you go and you pull a mortgage on a home. You're going to buy a $100,000 home, let's say. By the time you're done paying that 30-year mortgage, you've paid them $300,000 plus. And I say plus because you're working harder for your money because your money is devaluing.
That's right.
During that 30 years.